Welcome students and teachers. This video is about planets that were discovered using modern science. Prior to them, the most commonly known planets range from Mercury to Saturn, and planets beyond that were barely visible by naked eye. So, much of the civilization were not aware of them, and just recently we have started figuring out what all mysteries these planets hold. So, let us look into it. So, we immediately notice that the planet Uranus and Neptune are relatively quite far away from rest of the planets. They are relatively concentrated nearby, and like the astronomical distances goes like 5 AU, 10, 20, 30 roughly of this form. So, we see relatively less light coming from these from the reflection of these two planets. So, we have less information based on earth based observation, and whatever we know is based on one space mission's flyby. Uranus is, although it is visible by naked eye, but it is barely at the limit. So, for a long time people did not even know that this is a planet at all. It was discovered a couple of centuries ago. Similar to Saturn, it also has a ring system. If we compare some of the parameters relative to Earth, it is roughly 14 times more massive. The radius at 1 atmospheric pressure is around 4 times that of Earth. The escape velocity at surface, at that very surface, is roughly twice of that of Earth, and density a little more than that of Saturn. So, slightly larger, slightly further away. Let us look into how it compared to that of Neptune. So, compared to that, Neptune is more massive, but relatively less in size. Compared to Uranus, it is relatively more denser, and rest of the features are quite same. Both have ring system, both have satellites, both have almost 2 dozen satellites. So, in much sense they are same. Where the difference arises, Uranus is almost tilted sideways, roughly 97-degree tilt, which causes very extreme form of seasons. It is one of those very few planets where polar region receives more heat than the equatorial region during the entire orbit, and they cause a very extreme form of seasons. And in fact, despite being closer to Neptune, it has one of the coldest atmosphere in the entire solar system. The amount of time it takes once in the orbit is roughly equivalent to a human lifetime, approx 84 years. All the gas giants, and specifically we will get to see why these are called so, but also the ice giants Uranus and Neptune, they rotate quite rapidly as well, around 17 hours, Earth hours on one rotation. Comparing to that of Neptune, Neptune is tilted similar to that of Earth, but Neptune takes a long time to orbit. In fact, since its discovery, it has just completed one orbit around the Sun, around 164 years, being 30 astronomical unit away. It orbits quite slowly, around orbital speed is, let us say, around 5 km per second. So, it also experiences seasons, but it has slightly more surface features than that of Uranus. Some of you might have came across a news that some reprocessing of the images has been done, that of Neptune, that it is no longer believed to be that dark blue color. Its color is something similar to that of Uranus. Okay. Again, when we come to the interiors, both Uranus and Neptune are quite similar. Just a reminder, whenever planetary scientists says ice, they are mostly referring to water, methane, ammonia like simple molecules. So, in the core of this planet, you will find rocky metallic composition with icy surrounding. Relatively, Uranus, because of its liquid ice mantle, does not radiate that much heat, and that is also why you see much of the colder atmosphere in Uranus. And its upper atmosphere is mostly made up of hydrogen and helium, and we do not see much of its surface features in visible light. We have to use some other instruments to look past those clouds. One interesting fact that you will come across in these gas giants or ice giants is that methane within the interior of this planet is compressed at such a high pressure that the carbons and hydrogen atoms split, and that carbon in crystalline form behaves like diamond, and you will see some diamond rain in these planets. But for that you have to go much in the interior, do not go for shopping for diamonds anytime soon. So, coming back, Neptune has similar internal structure, with the minor differences that its surface features are much more prominent. You see cloud bands, you see some storm like features, and relatively it radiates slightly more heat than it receives. For the similar reasons Jupiter and Saturn radiate. One key feature, just like Jupiter we have great red spot, in Neptune we have great dark spot that was discovered by a mission called Voyager 2, and we will see a little bit more. So, this great white spot is something like a cyclone, but instead of clouds forming these spot, it is believed to be a hole that allows us to see the interior within the atmosphere, and this dark spot keeps on appearing, keeps on disappearing and then appearing again, and although it does not get that much attention, but it is one of another solar system mystery that baffles the scientist. We have recorded very fast winds both on Uranus and Neptune, and see these blue colors because in upper atmosphere methane is very good in absorbing red color in visible light. So, you see this pale blue color in both planets. Right. So, coming to the moons and ring system around Uranus, compared to let us say Saturn, both of them have very dark rings. Neptune may have incomplete ring as well. These are made up of mostly icy and dark dust like materials. Similar to that of Saturn, these are not continuous ring or continuous bands. These are collection of small rocky particles much smaller in size that orbit in a gravitationally bound orbit around Uranus and Neptune. But some of the few prominent moons of Uranus and Neptune is, for Uranus it is Miranda. Miranda is one of the very geologically active planet, although much smaller in size, but because of the tidal heating. Just like in the previous video, we have discussed that tidal forces due to nearby large planet causes heating in the internal structure, and that causes volcanic or active geological environment, and that is why on moon like Miranda we do not see uniform features, we see very crisscross features which have very recently emerged, likely because it might have melted the upper crust and re-emerged as a new one. Triton on the other hand is a moon of Neptune, but has composition similar to that of Pluto. So, we expect that it might have got captured from a nearby celestial event, and it also consists of some active volcanoes and active geology, and both of these moons you will find near to their star systems, and near both of these moons you will find near their ring system. So, just for a visual comparison, you see this very weird geology around the Miranda moon, and that is because it's been so actively been changing because of its tidal heating that it melts and regenerates some of its crust. Titan is comparatively much more stable in that sense, but it has also been observed to have active geology and volcanic activities. We could observe their ring systems in infrared. In visible light they are quite dark, but we could observe their ring system much more clearly, although they are not as dense as that of Saturn. An interesting fact, the Aries observatory in Nainital, India is responsible for discovering some of the ring system both in Uranus and Neptune. So, the data for these ring system were collected in those observatory. It happened to be when Uranus, for example, was passing in front of a star. Astronomers expected that light coming from the starlight will come through the atmosphere, and we will be able to observe that properties of atmosphere through different analysis. But instead they also encountered the change in light due to the ring system of Uranus, and that is when these systems were discovered. coming to the space mission, only Voyager 2 had the opportunity to have a flyby mission to both of these planets. These planets are very far away, so not many missions have been planned, but Voyager 2, when was close by both of these planets, observed many features about its surface, its atmosphere, wind speed, magnetic field, moons and ring system, most of which we have already covered. But the fascinating part is that Voyager 2 mission was planned because of an interesting coincidence. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune were on the same side of the Sun, and you could plan a gravity assist mission which could cover all these planets in just one go. And around 1986 and 1989, these planets were observed, and that is where bulk of our information comes from. So that's all from this video. If you have any doubts, any comments, or you would like to know anything more on a particular topic, do let us know in the comments. Thank you.